Everyone, welcome into the basketball podcast of Mid-America. Today is Thursday, February 1st. We've made it to February. And man, the Razorbacks got to win again. Before yesterday, it had been 15 days since they had been in the win column, but it felt like 1,500 with the way things have been going. It was a pretty doom and gloom episode last week for those who listened, and I think I even signed off telling everyone, thanks for listening to a downer episode. But this one should be a lot livelier, because suddenly the Arkansas basketball team has started playing hard and effort has not been a question at all in the Razorbacks' last two games. I'm Ethan Westerman, joined by Bob Holt of the Arkansas Democrat-Gazette. Here beside me, Blake Sutton is back there on the board. And for the first time, Anthony Christensen, who is new to our team, he might be the Hogs' good luck charm, by the way. They're 1-0 with him on the beat. He is joining the show as well. So surely there's some sort of correlation there, I'd think. Hogs are 1-0. You on your first day, they get a win. But everyone, thanks for tuning in. Right off the bat, I'm going to give it over to Anthony, who he's a hoops head. So he's someone who I think you'll grow to really love his coverage of particularly the basketball team. I'll give him a chance to kind of introduce himself and let everyone know his path to Fayetteville.
Yeah, no, undefeated in the Anthony Christensen era. Probably won't last forever, I would assume. But no, as we mentioned, first couple days on the job, happy to be here. Fun to get to cover big time college hoops. As you said, I'm a hoop head. I watch some sicko games, man. I'm not even gonna lie to you. I'll tune into some like NEC hoops or like SWAC. It's just some just vile stuff. But in terms of my my path here, excuse me. Just graduated from college about a year and a half ago. Probably not a lot of people are going to want to hear where I went, who are listening to this. But University of Missouri grad, graduated in spring of 22, and then made my way over to Evansville, Indiana, where I was covering the University of Evansville and the University of Southern Indiana, kind of primarily covering their men's basketball teams there. And then here I am now, after about a year and a half out there. And, so far so good, having a lot of fun with it, and, happy to be here.
Well, I'm glad that you went ahead and said you're a Mizzou grad, and so I didn't have to because I had it scripted. I was going to tell people, I've got Bob next to me. He's a Mizzou grad. We have Anthony across from me. He's a Mizzou grad. Christina Long, our new managing editor of Hogs Illustrated magazine, Mizzou grad. We have a lot of Tigers taking over here, but guess what? Arkansas took it to Missouri yesterday. The Razorbacks led for basically the entire game. I think there was like a minute or two at the beginning that maybe Missouri had a lead or it was tied. But Arkansas takes it to them, wins 91-84. Final score was not indicative of how that game felt. Bob, Anthony, I'm going to turn it over to both of you guys to talk about that game last night. We'll start with you, Bob, just what stood out.
Well, first, I just want to say that Missouri stresses academics over athletics. But, yeah, as far as the way the game stood out, well, yeah, Arkansas, you wondered if they might be flat after giving so much effort against Kentucky and falling short, playing really well, but having another tough loss. And they really came out and just put it on Missouri early, jumped out, really had control of the game, up by 19, I think, at halftime. One of the best halves they've played. I know Missouri's 0-8 now in the SEC, but they've been pretty competitive. I think I looked it up, and they'd been losing by an average of about 9 points in SEC games, so they hadn't been getting blown out. They took South Carolina to overtime there in Mizzou Arena a few days ago, and had a pretty competitive game at South Carolina last Saturday. So Arkansas just really took it to them. And, controlled the inside, controlled the paint. Mekhi Mitchell was great. Jalen Graham was really good. Chandler Lawson was solid. They got really good point guard play, which had been a struggle against Kentucky. Keon Menefield, who didn't play at all against Kentucky, had 32 really good minutes. Layden Blocker, the freshman, started. And just I know you got to take the opponent into account, but maybe Arkansas's best game of the year outside of Duke.
Arkansas was outscored in the second half by, doing quick math right here, they won by 7. We're up by 19 at half, so they were outscored by 12. Really, the game was decided in that first half, it felt like. Anthony, what were some things that you thought Arkansas did good just right out the gates to really just get such a big lead?
Yeah, you mentioned it, obviously. That game, the final score wasn't really indicative of it, and I never really felt like Missouri was ever really going to challenge Arkansas lead. But really, as Bob mentioned, kind of controlling the inside, playing at a good pace. 56 points in the paint. Excuse me. That's a lot of domination, kind of inside, and obviously Missouri is not the best defensive team in the league by any stretch. In fact, kind of the worst defensive team in the in the league when you look at the metrics. But I mean, you get the ball inside, you're going to find a lot of success against Missouri because a lot of their bigs aren't necessarily the best or rim protectors, and I think that's where you see a lot of where Mekhi Mitchell kind of got a lot of his a lot of his points and rebounds. Obviously, his second double in as many games. But I think that is obviously where a lot of that game was kind of decided was inside, and how much of an emphasis they put on that and getting inside with a lot of pick and roll options and everything along those lines, just kind of forcing it into the paint. And Missouri really never adjusted to that. And credit to Arkansas for kind of taking advantage of that and continuing to find the success inside.
Now let's talk about Mekhi some more. Back-to-back really strong performances. 12 points, 13 rebounds at home versus Kentucky. Then on his birthday last night, 19 points, 14 rebounds at Missouri. Bob, the big man, is stepping up, isn't he?
He's playing well, and I'm maybe aging myself. I'm not saying he's Will Chamberlain or Kareem Abdul-Jabbar or somebody like that, but I did think he could play better. I mean, there's a reason he came back, and it's not just that he wanted to come back; it's that the coaches wanted him back. So I think they were thinking he would take another step, and he'd had some moments. He'd had some good games, but there were also some games where he hadn't played much, and so. Obviously, there's a new emphasis going inside now, and he's been the leader of that. And I don't know if he can get a double-double every game, but I don't see why he can't, be a consistent scorer inside. He's getting the line, knocking down his free throws. That's big. I think he had 10 free throws against Kentucky. Did he have 6 last night or something like that? He's getting to the line, and he's getting other teams got bigs in foul trouble and running the floor really well and just doing a lot of things well. So you would think that this would really give him a shot of confidence and a boost, and he could I don't know if he'll do this every night, but 19 and 14, that's a lot to ask. But I don't know why he couldn't be getting 10 and 8 and 12 and 8, things like that.
Yeah, and kind of cool to see it happen on his birthday too. I know that last night whenever we got a chance to talk with Mekhi on the post game Zoom, started off, you could tell It was nice to get that on his birthday. Was it? I mean, kind of cool to see. I don't know. It's been such a rough stretch for the team. He had a lot of joy last night, it felt like.
Oh, yeah, and if people remember last year, of course, he's his twin brother, Mikkel, who's now at UALR, but they were teammates. They'd been teammates in high school at Maryland, at Rhode Island, at Arkansas. And last year on their birthday, Arkansas beat A&M in Walton Arena. Mikkel had a big game, something like, I'm trying to remember, maybe 9 points, 13 rebounds, a bunch of block shots, and Mekhi had a solid game too. Mikkel actually had a better game. So, they've been having happy birthdays in the Mitchell family.
Yeah, for sure. Anthony, I want to talk a little bit about what you wrote last night. Anthony wrote a really great in-depth piece just on what Arkansas did offensively and how it was improvement. I know, like I mentioned, maybe need to credit Missouri's defense a little bit for that, but still, what you saw from the Razorbacks, by the way, that article's on wholehogsports.com, check it out. But what'd you like from Arkansas last night when they had the ball in their hands?
Yeah, like we've kind of mentioned quite a bit already, is kind of getting the ball inside. The forwards did a really good job of getting to the basket. A lot of, like we mentioned, good pick and roll options. And, I mean, the efficiency is really what kind of stands out. I mean, 59% from the field in the first half, I believe, if I remember correctly. That's the best half of shooting Arkansas has had in the SEC ever. Which, obviously a lot of that maybe is kind of down to Missouri's, defense or lack thereof, but also you got to hit your shots. So, I mean, that's a big reason for that. But, you look at the forwards, there was the point guard play, as we've kind of mentioned as well, was way better than it was in previous games. And yeah, that's something that you can build upon and kind of, hopefully, I guess, see that kind of continue, if that makes any sense at all.
Yeah, really high percentage looks they were getting. Whenever you're having a paint party like the Razorbacks did last time, I mean, they were just living in the paint, especially in that first half, just dominant. Mekhi Mitchell, we've already talked about him a lot. He was a big part of it. Jalen Graham had a really nice game before he fouled out. Chandler Lawson was a factor. And also the Razorbacks got a lot of points in the paint just in transition at the rim, creating steal opportunities into points. But I want to zero in real quick, Bob, on the three-man front court Arkansas has right now with Trevin Brazil still ailing from his knee injury. You've had Mitchell, Graham, and Lawson really played two nice games back-to-back. Just did you see that coming from maybe these three guys?
Well, maybe saw it coming a little bit after the Kentucky game. You thought, wow, they played really well. Eric really was praiseworthy of them after that game. You thought, well, maybe they can carry that over. And leading into the Kentucky game, I don't know that I would have seen that coming. We've always known that Jalen Graham can score, but it was, like I say, there was mistakes he made that would seem to irritate Eric, and Eric would have a pretty quick hook with them. But he's being more consistent. He's staying in there. I think Eric's giving him a little more leeway to make some mistakes because the plus minus is good, and and the nice thing is you're basically talking about three guys for two spots, so everybody can get their minutes. Inevitably, those big guys are going to get in foul trouble. So if somebody gets a couple quick fouls, you can sub in, or if somebody's winded, or maybe somebody had a defensive bust and Eric wants to talk to him on the bench about it. It's nice to have some options to where it's not like two guys, or if somebody hurts an ankle or something. And especially with Trevin Brazil out, Bay Fall's a big, but he's young, he's raw, he's got a lot of upside, but obviously Eric probably doesn't feel too comfortable playing him in games or else they would have played him more minutes. But he's an option there too. I think he's a kid that plays hard. He just needs more experience. But that's a really nice three-man rotation for two spots, and it looks like it's going to be a good thing for him moving forward.
Yeah, well, we're going to cut to a break real quick, and whenever we come back, Blake is going to give us week 2 of Stump the Bob. You don't want to go anywhere. You're listening to the Basketball Podcast of Mid-America.
Stay on top of all Arkansas Razorback sports with a Digital Plus subscription on the Hogs Illustrated app. Get complete Razorbacks coverage in one location. Your subscription gives you 20-plus issues of Hogs Illustrated magazine, the most unique and compelling coverage anywhere in the state, plus total access to all the content on WholeHogSports.com, including breaking news, commentaries, analysis, features, recruiting, award-winning photos, and premium message boards. Subscriptions start at just $17 per month. Join the Hog Sports Network team at subscribe.waco.com. That's subscribe.wehco.com. Or call 479-684-5509 to get your front row seat to Arkansas Razorback sports. Go Hogs!
Welcome back into the Basketball Podcast of Mid-America. It is time for Stump the Bob. Blake, take it away.
All right, Bob, you did pretty well on last week's Stump the Bob. You just needed one hint to get the correct answer. This is courtesy of our friend at hogstats.com. If you don't follow Hogstats, he's a great follow on Twitter. Provides a lot of really interesting stats and a lot of historical stuff. We talked a lot about Mekhi Mitchell and his 19 and 14. Before last night, who was the last Arkansas player to get 19-plus points and 14-plus rebounds in a game off the bench?
Ooh.
I can give you a hint before you guess, too.
Let me guess. Can you read the question again?
Yeah.
I feel like I'm on Jeopardy or something.
Oh, yeah. Before last night, when Mekhi Mitchell got 19 points and 14 rebounds, who was the last Arkansas player to get 19-plus points and 14-plus rebounds in a game off the bench?
I'm going to guess Mario Credit.
Incorrect, but I can give you a hint. This might help.
Okay.
It was in a game against Minnesota in the Maui Invitational.
Oh, well, let's see.
And I can give you the year too, if it's too tough.
No, I remember when they played. I think it's got to either be Gafford or Portis. I'm gonna say Gafford.
No, but so Arkansas did play Minnesota in the Maui Invitational just a few years ago, but this was in 1991.
Oh. Can I cuss on this? 1991, okay. Off the bench. How about Isaiah Butch Morris?
No, good guess. I'm gonna give it to you though. It was Oliver Miller.
Off the bench?
Yeah.
I would not have thought that.
He had 23 points and 17 rebounds against Minnesota. 20. It looks like around Thanksgiving, 1991.
I would have guessed Oliver if there hadn't been an off the bench component to it, but I mean maybe maybe missed curfew or something, and Nolan Richardson didn't start him. But I would have picked him as a starter.
He could have been at a late night luau before the game or something.
Yeah.
Had too much poi.
Okay.
Oliver Miller and Mekhi Mitchell in an exclusive territory of their own now with this production off the bench. Guys, I gotta give it to Bob. I know he's 0-2 now in Stump the Bob, but these have been pretty difficult. I mean, but that's what happens whenever you're as legendary as Bob Holt. You don't get a beginner level for Stump the Bob. We start off with some tough stuff.
Well, what I get? I have 5 guesses there, or something, 4 or 5. I lost track. That's how many I had.
Hey, but listen, Stump the Bob, we might be 0-2 now, but it's just a matter of time till it's coming. We talk about Arkansas basketball. Can there be a turnaround? And you stay guessing. With Bob, you don't have to stay guessing. You know a turnaround is coming. It's inevitable. He is 100% Final Four quality year in and year out. So we expect there to be a bounce back. Transitioning back to last night's game, it's kind of funny. Last night, after we get done and we're waiting on the Zoom call for Eric Musselman to come on, he comes and sits down and he says ooh or something. He notices that the seat that he was sitting on was sweaty. It's the seat that Mekhi Mitchell had been in previously. And I just kind of found it ironic. I was like, the team has played really hard back-to-back games, and it's just like Eric Musselman's like, oh, the seat is really sweaty right now. I think that was just indicative. They played really hard. Like, you had Mekhi Mitchell, who came off the bench and just played his butt off. I mean, took it at him. And I think that's what everyone was really wanting to see, was people could live with results of the team as long as they saw effort. I mean, Saturday, I didn't hear many people complaining too much about the game. I mean, there were some real Debbie Downers that couldn't handle a 6-point loss to Kentucky, after the team had been put plainly blasted in a lot of their games before. But at least you saw effort. And I think for across the board, most people took it pretty well. It was encouraging. This team is showing us some effort again, because that's what was really the troubling question that a lot of people had. Last week I named the podcast episode title, It's Getting Hard to Watch. But guys, I think with the effort that the team has played with the past 2 games, I think I might call this one It's Getting Fun to Watch again, or maybe even just It's Getting Bearable to Watch. What do y'all think about, I guess, from an effort standpoint, something that's really been a question recently, what we've seen?
Oh, yeah, I don't think you can question their effort. I mean, it's like Eric said, they played as hard as they could against Kentucky. And he didn't sugarcoat stuff. He certainly has not been hesitant to blast the team for lack of effort and other failings. So I think he tells it like he sees it. And if you watch the game, you could tell they were playing hard. They may have had some turnover issues and missed some shots and did some other things, but it wasn't for lack of effort. And then the effort was there last night too. I mean, they really took it to Missouri, and maybe they let their foot off the gas pedal a little bit. But I just, it's hard to beat a team on the road by 20. It's hard to maintain a lead like that. I think they were by 23. Missouri's got some pride. They're going to come back. Tamar Bates, big time scorer, 29 points, but also 6 turnovers. But like we've said, you never really felt like Missouri was going to get back in that game to where they could really push Arkansas. And so, yeah, without question, the effort's been there the last 2 games.
For
and
sure.
I would like to add on, obviously, after the game, Eric came on the post-game soon, and he credited the defense a lot. I mean, I believe it was 10 steals, 6 blocks. I mean, those are big effort plays. Obviously, the defense wasn't that great when Missouri got it down to single digits, but he kind of took the fall for that. But when you're talking about effort, and obviously that was my first game, on the beat, but 10 steals, 6 blocks, those are effort plays that, you're not going to be questioning those guys, who are making those plays, whether or not their effort is there.
For sure. And another thing that, had been a big question, Bob, you wrote on this, that you did a great job setting up your preview of the game, was just point guard play. I mean, there were some serious questions there. Eric, after the Kentucky game, I mean, he didn't straight up call him out, I don't think, but he left it to where you knew the position he was talking about was at point guard, where they really had some shortcomings. What'd you see last night from the point guard room?
Well, yeah, and I think the other, after Kentucky, said something like, did one position kill us? Absolutely. So, we all knew he was talking about it. And he said, we have to get better point guard play. But I was curious what he was going to do, because it's a road game. Is he going to stick with L. Ellis, who seems to be a great kid, and he's had his moments, but he had 5 turnovers I think in SEC play, L had 6 assists and 12 turnovers, so not a good ratio. I think it was going to stick with him. And then after listening to him on the radio show, he really praised Layden Blocker. I thought, well, he's going to play Blocker, might start him. I wasn't sure if he'd play Menafield because, Missouri does have some fairly sizable guards. But, yeah, the point guard play, he didn't play L at all, that's kind of been a pattern of guys playing quite a bit for a stretch and then maybe not playing at all. Menafield didn't play at all, but I give him credit. He must have, Eric said he had good practice, so he didn't pout about not playing. He gave him some great minutes, 16 points, 3 assists, I think only 1 turnover in 32. Layden had 3 turnovers. You'd like to see fewer than that, but he had 9 points, 3 assists. He's a good rebounder. He made a big play at the end of the half to get fouled. Hit a couple free throws with 0.2 seconds left. I mean, that had to be super demoralizing to Missouri to give up 2 free throws with 0.2 seconds left, and that was the end of a 12-2 run. Blocker's a tough guy. He'll play good defense too. And so, Eric said he gave the point guard play an A+. And earlier in the year, he was talking about some aspect defense. He gave him a triple F. So Eric, he'll give some bad grades. So if he gives you an A+, I think that means he's pretty happy.
And talking about, sorry.
Oh, no, go ahead.
I was going to talk a little bit about Keon Menafield. Obviously, going into the game, Eric kind of talked down the use of bounce passes because obviously, Missouri, if they're good at one thing on defense, it's turning teams over, and bounce passes give ample opportunity for that. And I wrote a little bit about this in my story, but Keon Menafield had, I'm not sure if he actually got credit for an assist or not, but one of the best plays of the game. Missouri had cut the lead to 11 with, I don't remember exactly how much time left, but bounce pass into Mekhi Mitchell for a pretty big dunk that the crowd was kind of getting back into it. If Missouri gets a stop there, cuts it to single digits at that point, maybe you're thinking, okay, here we go again. But instead, Keon Menafield gets that potential assist. I don't remember if he got credited for it or not, but then and then later on in the game, it's the opposite kind of connection. Mekhi Mitchell, saves the ball from going out of play, gets it to Keon on the perimeter, and he hits a huge 3 to kind of seal the deal. And kind of going back to what we're talking about with point guard play, that's a big part of it.
Absolutely. Well, I don't want to spend a ton of time flashing back talking about the Kentucky game, but I think we'd be remiss if we didn't because it was a cool thing to have College Game Day here. Let's just get that out of the way. I mean, regardless of how this season is going, it was, pretty awesome to see, the big names come here, the big lights, the big production. And ahead of that show and, during the media availability we had with Seth Greenberg and Andrea Carter, they really gave a nod to the environment at Bud Walton Arena and how the program has risen the past few years as key reasons why the show was there. I mean, I think that was the obvious question people had is, why are y'all coming here with this year Arkansas is having? But the show is, Bob would be better at saying exactly how they said it, but I think they said each one of these is like an event. They just want to really showcase awesome things of the game, and Arkansas has gotten to a point where its program and its fan base and Bud Walton Arena where it's an awesome part of the sport. I mean, people look at Arkansas and they know they have a passionate fan base. Anthony, as someone who's not been here at Arkansas, but you're a big college basketball guy, I'm just wondering how you viewed Arkansas as a program over the past few years.
Oh, it's good. I came here while I was covering Missouri as a student, and Bud Walton Arena is one of my favorite arenas I've ever covered a game in, and I'm excited to get back to doing that as actually like a full-time thing now. But I've always kind of respected the program Arkansas has had and built here over the past few years since Eric's kind of taken over. It's a good program that I think, despite the problems and the struggles of this year, I think it's in a pretty good spot. Especially you look at the tournament runs and everything in recent years. So as somebody who's been an outsider and kind of looking in, I've always kind of respected what's been happening here. And I wish College Game Day had come like a week later, so I was here for it. But beggars can't be choosers, I suppose.
Yeah, Bob. I mean, you've covered the Razorbacks for a long time. You saw the giant that Nolan Richardson really built with the program, and it was kind of like in between him and the Musselman era. Eric, don't get me wrong, there were some great moments in between there too with Mike Anderson and several other coaches. But I mean, really, it's kind of been a sleeping giant program, I'd say, as far as like just needed the fan, like something to wake the fan base up again. What has it been like, in your opinion, seeing especially under Eric Musselman, just kind of the rise of the program to getting that nationally relevant again.
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun because when I first came here, Eddie Sutton was in his prime with the Razorbacks. I covered players like Darrell Walker, Joe Klein, Alvin Robertson, Scott Hastings, a lot of great players. And then Nolan Richardson came, and he really took it to another level, winning the national championship, going to 3 Final Fours. And, they had to build Bud Walton Arena. There was initially talk of expanding Barnhill, and they talked to Bud Walton, who, of course, is Sam Walton's brother and was one of the Walton billionaires, I guess. And they talked to him about expanding Barnhill, like I think raising the roof, which is I think what they did at Gallagher-Iba there in Stillwater, where Eddie Sutton coached after he was at Arkansas and Kentucky. And he said, well, what about building a whole new arena? They felt like they needed a new arena going to the SEC. And it's funny, you think about all the money they spend now. I think they built Bud Walton Arena for $31 million, and Sam Walton put in 15. And I remember Frank Broyles telling me the story. He and Nolan Richardson went to see Bud Walton and talked to him, really hoping he'd help him. And then Frank Broyles is in his office, and Bud Walton comes by to see him and says something like, hey, Frank, put me down for half. And then he just stopped in real quick and said, put me down for half, and they left. And I remember thinking, man, that reminds me of when I was in college and we'd be getting pizza or whatever. And somebody'd say, hey, man, put me down for half. Only this was a $15 million pizza. But yeah, it's been fun to see the program. Like I said, they had some moments under other coaches, but not the consistent winning they had under Eddie Sutton and Nolan Richardson. And then, Eric's had 3 really great seasons, and this season has not been good, nowhere near what I expected. I think it's probably a blimp. I think given the opportunity, Eric Musselman will get Arkansas back. But the fact that Duke came here in the ACC SEC Challenge, that speaks to the relevancy that Arkansas has regained on a national level.
A $15 million pizza, that better have some delightful crust.
I'm thinking stuffed crust. I mean, some good toppings. You got multi-cheese layers, too.
Yeah, we need this $15 million pizza. Real quick before we end this, Arkansas plays at LSU on Saturday, 11 a.m. tip, which that's great for you, Bob, as far as deadline goes, right?
Yeah, if I miss that deadline, then I'd probably get fired. But and I think it's good for the road team, whether it's Arkansas or whoever, because in the morning, number one, you get back home a lot faster. Get back home at 3 a.m. or something. But also, I'm sure LSU will have a decent crowd, but. I just don't think the fans are as into it at 11 a.m. as they are at 2 or in the afternoon, or certainly at night. And so I think that's good for Arkansas. When Missouri comes here later in the season, that's going to be an 11 a.m. game too. So Arkansas fans are going to have to be wide awake for that. But yeah, looking at LSU, they're like a lot of teams in the SEC. They're better. A lot of the teams that were bad, like Georgia and South Carolina, and Missouri's digressed, and so has Vanderbilt, who was pretty good last year. But I was double checking here right now. Yeah, LSU's 11-9, which doesn't sound great. They're 3-4 in the SEC, where they were 2-16 last year, and they're 8-3 at home. They beat Ole Miss at home. They got a neutral site win over Wake Forest. They won. It's weird. They won at A&M, and then A&M won at LSU. And then kind of like Kentucky beat Florida on the road, and then Florida beat Kentucky last night and we're up. But so they've got some solid wins. People might remember Jordan Wright, former Vanderbilt player. He's got averaging 15.7. Jalen Cook, he's former Tulane player. He's averaging double figures, 13-1, I think. So, they're a solid team. They're at home. Another thing is they've had a whole week to get ready. There's a new thing this year in the schedule where you get a bye. Arkansas will get the bye next week. They'll play at LSU, then they'll play until the following Saturday when Georgia comes to Fayetteville. So LSU's had a full week to prepare. Sometimes that's good, sometimes that's bad. Arkansas, if they win at LSU, they may want to keep playing and not take a week off. I don't know, but so it's another definitely a winnable game for Arkansas, but certainly no gimme.
For sure. Well, the Razorbacks, like we said, play Saturday at LSU. They get that week off, then they'll play again next Saturday at home against Georgia. But until next week, as for Ethan Westerman, Bob Holt, Anthony Christensen, and big thanks to Blake Sutton again in the back end for his Stump the Bob that we love. Thanks for listening in to a relatively upbeat edition of the Basketball Podcast of Mid-America.